Hi everyone, my name is Thomas Smith. I'm Pastoral Associate here at Holy Spirit Catholic Community, and I'm really thrilled to be joined by Jessica Gallegos. She's our Director of Religious Education here. She's the Ambassador for Youth and Young Adult in the Eastern Deanery of our diocese, and she's become involved as a leader in an amazing national initiative put on by the USCCB, and that's what we're here to talk about. So welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, before we get started, a lot of people ask me, and I know they ask you, what is the USCCB?
So it's the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. So it's like all of the bishops, there's like 400 and something in the United States, and they are all under one like umbrella, and they have a council that is the USCCB.
Great. And one of the committees that came off the USCCB was a committee on cultural diversity, and that's part of what this initiative is part of. But so I think it was back in 2019, 2020, Pope Francis held a synod for young adults and youth. And then he invited every country, or like our Conference of Bishops, to do something with the document that came out of that, Christ is Alive. So this initiative started in our country called Journeying Together. And that's what you've been a part of. Can you say a little bit about what Journeying Together is?
So Journeying Together is, it's exactly what you said. It comes off of the Youth Senate and Christo Videvit, which is the Latin word for what he said. It's the implementation of exactly what Pope Francis said in those documents here in the United States. So one of the main things that comes out of that document is that youth and young adult, we want to be accompanied. We want to have mentors. We want to have people to walk with us where we're at, because not all of us are going to be in the same spot or in the same place in our lives that we can all be clumped together. It's easier to have somebody who's going to walk with you and kind of just guide you and show you how the Catholic Church is. So the Journeying Together process, it has like 6 steps, but the first one was initially getting together and listening to youth and young adults and other people who are ministers in that in the realm of youth and young adult.
It really reflects Pope Francis's mood. He has that wonderful image of accompanying people on their journey of faith and creating dialogues, and as you said, kind of listening to each other. So how did you become involved in it? How did you become selected, and what's been your role?
It's been a whirlwind. I've actually still can't process the fact that I'm a part of this, because to me it's like so overwhelming. The actual amazing thing about it is Deacon Sal Carranza, who is our Director of Youth and Young Adult Evangelization here in the diocese, is on this board, and he actually was like, Jessica, I feel like you should be a part of this. And I'm like, I'm not going to lie, I cried when he called and told me that, because it was also on the way back from the canceled ICYC that didn't happen in 2020. It was 2020 when that didn't happen. It's been a weird year. But I filled out the form, and I didn't hear back from them until about August, September. And I was able to be a part of it because of the fact that my dad is a migrant farm worker when he was younger, when he first got here. And I don't remember that, but it did happen with my sisters. He did have to go to a camp over in Nampa while he was married to my mom. So I got to be a part of that because of my dad and just that background. And so I've been a part of the Journeying Together process. At first, it's just a participant, somebody who could voice her opinion in it was step 2, which is the dialogue, where in our cultural family, this is all cultural families, doesn't matter your background. Mine is just the melting pot of all of them. So we are called the PCMRTs, which is people on the move, migrant farm workers, just migrant people in general, refugees. And we also have some of the Caribbean islands and people off those those areas with us. And we all got together and we talked about it. We heard from different people's testimonies, and the fact that we got to have bishops on there. I got to meet Archbishop Perez just through the videos, but still I was pretty excited because I got to talk to him. And he actually said my name, which is another thing that made me super excited, because I was like, oh my gosh, he heard me. Because let's be honest, it's hard to really meet archbishops around here in Idaho. Right. There was a couple other people from Idaho on there as well, that first initial one. And then after that, I got asked by Sister Joanna to be just doing the prayer for our big event for step 3, which is each cultural family goes and makes their own presentation. And so other cultural families come on and watch. We had bishops, you have priests, a ton of amazing sisters from different orders from all over the United States. Just people all over getting to listen at that April 21st meeting that we had. But then all of a sudden, I had talked to Madeline Watkins and then Sister Joanna, and they both were like, Jessica, we want you to be a co-MC with Father Tony, who is a Maronite priest. And I was like, okay, all right, that's great. You know, I'll do it. I'll do whatever you say. And we just started there, and we started doing like weekly meetings about getting this ready. And we had panelists. We had about six panelists in two panels and six panelists. And Father Tony took one part and I took another part. And then we just interacted throughout the whole thing. We really wanted to make it into a dialogue, not like a complaining session or just we're talking at you. We wanted to make it very integral as much as you can through Zoom. Right. Because all of this is Zoom based. This was supposed to all be in person in Chicago, which never happened. But the way things worked out is that we were able to have a discussion on the 21st and I was reading the names in the diocese, because we had to remind everybody, don't unmute yourself. Right. Because you have like 284 or 86 people from all over the United States trying to unmute themselves at the same time. Like, it was a huge process. And part of what I got to do was introduce our panelists, introduce some people. Like, I got to introduce a video from Cardinal
Pierre.
No, Cardinal, just forgot his name. He's a cardinal, and I can't think of his name right now. But him, and then I actually got to introduce the papal nuncio.
That's Archbishop Pierre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I got to introduce him, which is amazing because, first off, he's like the papal nuncio, so the first thing he says is "Greetings from Pope Francis," and I'm like, "Hi, yeah," like super excited, and I was super nervous that I was gonna mess up his name somehow. Like, over the whole thing, that was the thing that I was the most nervous about, was messing up his name, because I'm like, yeah, he'll be like, yeah, I was on this call and this girl messed up my name, and like Pope Francis is gonna be like, oh, that girl is like, So I just didn't want that, even though that wasn't going to be the case. But it was an amazing, beautiful process that I got to be a part of, and it's still not over. They've actually asked me to be on the board for the advisory board for the young adults in this process, because there's still about 2 or 3 other cultural families get to talk.
Super.
And then we get to go to Chicago next year, God willing, that everything's fine by that point. Yeah. That we get to have an actual in-person after we do all the steps and see how we're really going to implement what we hear.
So it sounds like a richly diverse community. There was a big focus on minority groups, as you mentioned, refugees. I like that phrase, people on the go, because there's migrant families moving, there's people living in RVs, there's people that are homeless and shifting to shelters, so you want to reach out to all those. You talked about working with a Maronite father, so you got an experience of working with someone from an Eastern Catholic religious tradition. That must have been fun.
Oh, yeah.
What are some things you learned about these other cultures or expressions going through that?
So one of the panelists was his name is Deacon Gary. I think it's Deacon Gary. Now my brain just went off. But he works for the USCCB. He's a deacon for circus and wrestling shows. Wow. So he was telling us these amazing stories about like how you have all these big giant guys who are like wrestlers, and they all had this they go on the move with them and have mass and do like get them marriage prep, give them sacrament preps, and this was the first time they had ever gotten a mass, and they just cried. Wow. And they do rodeos, and he talks about like doing mass under the big top and just amazing things in that aspect. And then also with the Eastern rites, I've learned more about the Eastern rites now than I've ever known before. And it's all because thanks to Father Tony and one of our other panelists, who were really talking about how we only hear about the Roman Rite, and we really don't hear about the Eastern rites that are here in this beautiful, diverse church that we call the Universal Church.
Right.
And how the Eastern rites are still under the directive of the Pope. Like they just have little things that are a little different than what we do. And this is all me getting to know Father Tony and listening to Yusuf's talk that I started to pay more attention to what they were talking about on the Eastern side. And then Pope Francis decides to go to Iraq like it's nothing. And I'm like, okay. So then I got to watch what kind of influence our Pope has over there. And like he goes to a country that doesn't really like Christians, but is able to meet high leaders, meet the people, and celebrate their mass the way that it is done. And being able to see that and watch how they actually celebrate mass.
Right.
And the different music, the different prayers, it is just really beautiful and has opened my eyes to the different kinds. And I would love to learn more, and I would love for people to know more about the different rites, because our church is immense and it has a beautiful wealth of just information and just traditions that each culture has, or each group has, that can bring so much beauty to the church instead of just pushing it off, saying that we need to do the European or the the Roman Rite.
Right. So yeah, even in the celebration of our liturgies, the church is teaching us how to appreciate diversity. And we have 20 plus different Eastern Rite liturgies that as Romans we're very unfamiliar with most of the time. And I never would have thought, wow, who takes care of circus clowns and rodeo riders, and what a neat thing that there are people out there that have a heart to follow those people on the move that need to be ministered to as well. So I know the process isn't over, but what are some ways Holy Spirit Catholic community can start to engage, do you think, journeying together now?
I think we do a pretty good job when it comes to welcoming, but I feel like you can never not welcome or be accepting and welcoming. I was hearing stories from different people saying that they don't feel as welcomed in their parish, that they are refugees from Africa, and that they weren't really feeling that welcome. Like our staff is pretty welcoming, I would think. I mean, I'm on the staff, so I'm just saying. But I feel like we can always be more welcoming, and just, hey, you see somebody at Mass that you've never seen before, and granted, during the time of COVID, you really might not know who's in front of you, or you might know who's in front of you, just have a mask on. But to be more welcoming, and because I know us Catholics, we get set in our ways, we get set in where we want to sit in Mass, and we think more inwardly instead of outwardly. And God is always telling us that we need to meet people where they're at, and be friendly. And even you can tell if somebody's smiling through a mask. I mean, at least for me, I can, because like you see this and you just see my eyes go up. But smiling at people, saying hi to them, you see somebody new, introduce yourself. I feel like that's something we can definitely do here. And I think there's other cultural diversities that we have here, not just the Latinos and Hispanics. We also have we do have a population of African Americans, and we also have Native Americans. And that was one of the processes that I got to listen in on their cultural dialogue, was how they feel like they are living a double life, because their culture, as in the Native American side, is very much one way, and then Catholics are a whole another way, and that you can't be one, but you really can be one. But they were talking about that, and I never really pictured that or thought about that when we have Fort Hall, the show band right next to us. I never really thought about that, and it was like so close to us. So listening to that was really opening. And then also, like, I know we have a Filipino as well here, so like I would love to learn more and like incorporate more of their traditions and cultures maybe into our community, or maybe into some of our liturgies in certain ways, like we do during the International Food Fair.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that food fair, because it's a wonderful way this parish has always shown we appreciate the diversity, just like at Pentecost when all the nations came together. But maybe in the future of these international food fairs, someday when things return to normal, at those booths that have different ethnic foods, maybe we need to incorporate some part of that culture that they can teach us about, we can appreciate more deeply. And you mentioned hospitality. just going out of our way, even during COVID times, if we see someone in the parish we don't recognize, might be new, might be different looking from us, go out of our way to reach out to them, because we do have rich diversity, and we have new people that have moved into our community in the last year that most of us probably haven't met and might not feel welcome. I know in central Idaho there's African refugees that the church is trying to deal with there, so there might be some opportunities for us to help with that as well. Any other things you want to say about journeying together before we close?
I think the one thing that I truly appreciate and love out of this whole thing is that our April 21st, our event was literally felt like what was a once in a lifetime opportunity for myself. I was in awe. I literally went, after I got done here, I went over to the church and sat in adoration and cried a little bit, just because giving thanks to God. But just this process has opened my eyes just a little bit more to exactly what it means to be a Catholic and what it means to be a follower of Christ. And I just pray that, and ask you to pray as well, that as a church, as a nation, that we can be more united and more together as a family, and no matter what you look like, where you're from, or how you celebrate Mass. I ask that of everybody, and if you could just pray for me and for this journey, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. We're so proud of Jessica and all the leadership she is taking on, both in our parish and nationally. There's going to be more information in the show notes below about journeying together, so you can learn more and share with us your ideas on how we can, as a parish, participate in this really wonderful initiative. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Thomas. Thanks, guys.